My cat's sleeping on the chair. Oh, hey friends. Today I wanted to talk about an anime called Your Lie in April. So in case you didn't know, I actually really like anime. And I recently watched this one called Your Lie in April, and I'm not gonna lie, I got way more than I expected. If you haven't seen the show before, it's about this kid named Arima who is a high school student, and he used to play the piano in competitions and stuff like that, and basically stopped competing when his mom died because of a lot of emotional trauma that happened to him with his mom teaching him how to play the piano. 20 episodes or so. Throughout the story, he meets somebody who's also a musician and kind of pulls him out of the darkness and helps him figure out problems, that kind of stuff. And he actually starts playing the piano competitively again, and it's very rocky and it's full of emotion and him just overcoming his own darkness of not knowing why he's playing. It's your average slice of life kind of anime. High school kid meets some girl. There's like ambiguous feelings. He overcomes a challenge. She obviously has to die at the end. So it's got a whole bunch of regular tropes. I kind of liken it to A Walk to Remember with Mandy Moore and that other guy I never remember, because it wasn't his walk to remember. It's actually very much similar. Lost guy meets passionate girl. Passionate girl is about to die because of a predetermined illness. Lost guy finds himself with the girl and then figures out how to move on past that relationship and ultimately be himself. And it hits all the boxes. It's a very good show. It's a very powerful show, but the thing that stood out to me the most was actually something unexpected. I don't think it's something that a lot of people will take away from the show, so I wanted to share it. So as an artist and as a creator myself, I used to be a b-boy. I used to breakdance competitively, and I also throughout my life have been a musician and done performances, and even stand-up comedy and poetry and improv comedy and all that kind of stuff are some things that I've really enjoyed doing in the past. As an artist and creator, the message that stood out to me the most wasn't so much finding what drives you to create. What stood out the most was the need for the audience. And it's something I never really considered, and it's actually something that I felt very differently about for the majority of my life so far. When I was heavily into dancing, I used to struggle with the question about why I danced and why I would create, or why I wanted to make the art that I make. Why do I want to make music? Why do I want to do all this stuff? Even now, why do I want to make a YouTube channel? Why do I want to make videos? Are questions that I continuously ask myself, and this show actually helped me figure that out. And I think that's kind of funny. When I stopped dancing and when opportunities to make music weren't directly in front of me like they were in school, and I stopped subsequently doing them, I really started to feel bad, and I started to feel like something was missing. I remember when I pulled away from the dance community and when I stepped back and kind of retreated into myself, I couldn't figure out why I didn't feel good. I couldn't figure out what it was that made me feel shitty. And over time I started to realize that I've actually been spending less time around people and more time by myself. And along with other things in my life that have affected my relationships, I realized that I actually don't really know how to connect with people very well. I'm very good at speaking and I'm very good at getting my point across and reading other people very well, but over the last several years I've felt quite lost and unable to connect. Some people are able to connect just by hanging out and being in the same place with people. I know a lot of people that get a lot of energy from being around their friends and just hanging out with the people that they care about. While I think that's super fun, it's not quite the same for me. And throughout the story of Your Lie in April, Arima starts to get into competitions again, but not so much to actually win. Winning the competition is never the point of the show. In fact, he gets disqualified more times than you actually see him succeed in the show. And that brings up a great point about failure and how it's important to fail, and then failing doesn't really matter as long as you get to the other things, but that's not the point I want to talk about. The point I want to talk about is that he gets on stage and he competes not to actually win, but to find himself and express himself. And throughout the show, when he's successfully expressing himself, or when other characters are on stage successfully expressing themselves, the thing that's constantly being said is, I hope this reaches them. I hope this reaches you. And I think that makes a really, really good point, because without anyone to see this performance, a specific audience that they're looking for, there's nowhere these emotions are going to go. So it started to make me think that people like myself, people that are creative or artists and musicians, that's kind of how we use our creations. It's never just making something for the sake of making something. It's making something to express ourselves and to connect with other people. And I never really got the point before about the connection. I always made the point of self-expression to nobody. There was no audience in my mind. It was just an open expression of myself, and it was for me. I heard this quote somewhere, and at first I didn't really like it, but I still think it's very true, is that as artists, once we create our thing, that creation is not our own anymore. And I still think it's very important to create things for yourself, and it's important to obviously practice and have a certain mastery of it before you go to perform. But when you get to the performance, it's not for you. I mean, sure, in the anime, even when Arima was selfish with doing that performance, like getting on stage to get it out of himself, ultimately it was an expression of his emotion. It wasn't for the audience, but it wasn't just for himself. And in fact, it did allow the audience to actually experience the struggle that he's having through his music and through his art. And I thought that was really, really well done. It just really emphasized the point that when we create as artists, it is a form of connection. It is a form of reaching out to our audience, whether it be a room full of people or a specific person. But the act of performing in front of an audience is its own thing. It's something that I had a hard time figuring out for myself, was that the drive to connect is what causes the desire to create. So really, by doing all the things that I'm trying to do now, by making YouTube videos, by making more art and more podcasts, by making music now, I'm actually trying to reach out and connect. It kind of like messed me up a little bit thinking about that, because I couldn't really identify that I wanted to do these things because I was reaching out. I struggled with that, and I always thought that I want to make these things because that's who I am, and I never really connected my loneliness and my feeling of isolation to my lack of creation, because the creation is what was connecting me to everyone I knew and the people around me. Now that I think back to my friends that are also creators, my musician friends, my dancer friends, my friends that are artists and painters, their art is like a love letter to us. All of our art is for us, and it's for us to share how we feel and for us to understand each other better. And it's really cool. Some of the people that I feel closest to, or that I felt closest to before, are people whose art I could witness firsthand, whose expressions I felt in their creativity. If you don't really watch anime, then you're probably never going to watch the show, but Your Lie in April is very heavily about expressing yourself through art and reaching the people that you want to reach through your art. That, I think, was a huge, huge thing to put in a show. I think a lot of people won't catch that unless they really think about why they do things themselves. Yeah, if you're into anime and if you like to create anything, if you're an artist or something like that, or if you're a musician and you want to listen to some good classical music that sometimes gets butchered because of Arima's, emotional struggles, then definitely watch Your Lie in April. It's on Netflix. Highly recommend. I was blown away. Granted, it is, a typically cheesy anime about a fleeting relationship and these kids. If I think about when I was a kid, it kind of matches up with the way I thought about the world, Everything was heavily saturated. All my emotions were super saturated when I was 14. And everything that was happening in my life was the most important thing that was happening, and nothing in the world really existed. Out of all the reviews I've seen, nobody's quite talked about the need for the audience as an artist, and that's why I wanted to do this. I'm not really about doing a whole bunch of anime reviews, but I do want to talk about things that elicit an emotional response from me quite a bit, and this was a surprise. This was a surprise for me. I didn't expect this show to do that. Yeah, let me know if you've seen it and if you feel something similar. See ya. My cat's sleeping on the chair behind me, so I can't